Okay, so picture this. It's 1967, and a company that makes both kitchen refrigerators and rocket components releases a film. And this film tries to predict what life will be like in the year 1999. It was this incredible, bold vision of a push-button future. So today, we're going to deconstruct this fascinating time capsule and see what it tells us, not just about their world, but also about ours.
The movie wraps up with this line, and it's just so incredibly optimistic, right? It perfectly captures that techno-utopian spirit of the 1960s, this deep belief that the future had absolutely no limits, and that it would be powered entirely by human imagination.
Which, of course, leads to the big question. Looking back with over 3 decades of hindsight, how well did their vision actually hold up? Well, the answer is kind of fascinating. It was both startlingly accurate and, at times, hilariously wrong. All right, first things first, let's take a tour of this world they dreamed up for the fictional Shaw family. The House of Tomorrow was this sleek, automated paradise, a perfect blend of mid-century modern style and pure space-age tech. And what you see is this really wild mix of the familiar and the totally fantastic. I mean, they imagined a house that powered itself with its own fuel cell. But here's the crazy part. They also completely nailed the ideas behind online shopping, email, and yeah, even giant 3D TVs. It was a true push-button utopia. Okay, but here's the thing. This movie wasn't just some fun, futuristic fantasy. It was an incredibly smart piece of corporate marketing, and it was born out of a very specific moment in time, the American space race.
See, to really get what's going on here, you have to transport yourself back to the 60s. The race to the moon was this massive national project. I mean, look at this number. It was gobbling up a huge piece of the federal budget. This created a culture of techno-optimism where almost any futuristic idea felt possible, and the entire country was just captivated by space exploration.
And that's where our sponsor, Philco Ford, enters the picture. Now, to most Americans, Philco Ford was the familiar brand that made their TV or their refrigerator. But what most people didn't know was their secret identity. They were a high-tech aerospace giant, literally building the control consoles for NASA's Mission Control in Houston.
So what they did was use this brilliant marketing play called brand transference. The goal was pretty simple. Let's take all that cool factor, all that prestige and excitement of the Apollo program, and kind of rub it all over our everyday kitchen appliances. So the message, the one they're not saying out loud, was this. The film basically brings mission control into your home. Those blinking lights and all those consoles in the family's kitchen, that was no accident. They were designed to look just like the real-deal tech Philco Ford was building for NASA. It was a subtle way of saying, hey, the genius that gets us to the moon, it can also make your life perfect.
All right, so that's the why. That was the sales pitch. Now for the fun part. The reality check. How did their predictions actually do when compared to the real world of 1999?
And this is where your jaw kind of hits the floor. When it came to the function of future tech, they were scarily good. Their electronic correspondence machine? That's email. Fingertip shopping? That's e-commerce, a perfect prediction of Amazon. Electronic funds transfer was online banking. They even saw computer-based distance learning coming. It's absolutely incredible foresight.
Then you've got the almosts, right? The near misses. These were the ideas that were conceptually spot on, but the timing or the scale was just off. They imagined a fully automated smart home, but in 1999, that stuff was still pretty niche, mostly for hobbyists. Same thing with video calls. The tech was there, sure, but it was nowhere near the easy, everyday tool they thought it would be. But oh boy, where they really got it wrong was the form of the technology. Their whole vision was stuck in that 1960s mainframe mindset. One giant central computer running everything. They just couldn't see the personal computer revolution coming. At all. Their interface was all physical buttons and knobs. They completely missed the mouse and the graphical user interface. And that huge 3D TV? Yeah, definitely not in every home in 1999. But you know what? All of that, the tech hits and misses, that's not even the film's biggest fail. Not by a long shot. Their biggest failure was a complete inability to imagine that society itself could and would radically change. Just look at this chart. In the time between when the film was made and the year it was set in, the role of women in American society was fundamentally transformed. The number of married women with young children in the workforce nearly doubled. That's a massive social shift. Okay, so keep that data in your head.
Now listen to this actual line from the movie's narrator. The wife does the shopping, but the husband has to approve the payment on his separate console. Whoa! That single sentence just perfectly exposes this deeply ingrained social assumption that was about to be completely overturned in the real world.
And there it is. That is the film's single biggest blind spot. Their imagination was powerful enough to invent email, but it wasn't powerful enough to imagine a female executive using it. They projected all this radical technological change onto a society that they assumed would stay exactly the same as it was in the 1960s. So, okay. It's kind of dated, it's a corporate ad, it's got some huge blind spots. So why are we still talking about it? Why is this 50-year-old film so captivating?
Well, the answer has a pretty cool name: retrofuturism. It's this fascination we have with how people in the past saw the future. These visions create a kind of nostalgia for a future that never actually happened. A future that often feels a little more optimistic, maybe a little more orderly, and definitely more charming than our own.
And this film's look, you could almost call it NASA-core, is the perfect example of this. It's a true time capsule of 1960s aspirational design. You've got the sleek furniture, that functional mission control vibe, and these bold geometric shapes. It's a vision of tomorrow that is unmistakably a product of yesterday.
And that brings us all the way back to where we started, with that super hopeful closing line. But hearing it now, after all this, it doesn't sound so much like a promise. It feels more like a profound and maybe unintentional piece of irony.
Because here's the real takeaway. Any prediction about the future, it's not really a window, it's a mirror. Year 1999 AD tells us way more about the corporate goals, the social norms, and the technological limits of 1967 than it ever could about the actual year 1999.
And that, of course, leaves us with a really big and kind of challenging final thought. This film perfectly reflects the blind spots of its time. So it makes you wonder, right, when people in the future look back at our predictions for, say, 2050, what are our blind spots? What obvious, fundamental shifts are we completely failing to see right now?